Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with the look at the market for the week ending February 23rd, 2018. We'll take a look at the disclaimer, and I ask you to read this because you need to know that this video is only for educational purposes. It's not an investment advice. So the first chart that we're going to look at today is the monthly chart of the S&P 500. And what we see here is that the 4 EMA is above the 9 and 9 above 30. So that suggests that or indicates that the trend is still up on the monthly chart. However, when we look at the candlesticks and parabolic, we get a mixed picture. For example, we do have a hanging man because the shadow of this this candlestick here, so far for the month anyway, is about 3 times the size of this body, the height of this body. So it's called a hanging man, it's bearish. On the other side of the coin, we have a bullish harami, where we have the body of this candle totally engulfed by the previous candle. So that's also bullish. So on the one hand, we have this bullish harami. On the other hand, we have this bearish hanging man. What the hanging man suggests is that the market opened here for the month, somewhere around this level here, right here. And it gradually made its way down to this level. And as Dan Gramza might put it, the bulls decided to reject this price here and pushed it all the way back up. So now we have a closing price at 27.47 as of Friday's close. The other negative that we have here is the parabolic being above the most recent bar, to this month's bar. So there's this conflict. We have bearish and bullish signals, and that highlights the suggestion by Steve Nissen, who brought candlesticks to the West from Japan. He was the first one to write about candlesticks in this country. He suggests that we shouldn't use candlesticks alone to make our trading decisions. We certainly need to confirm with other indicators. This is a good example of why. Now, this is a long-term chart. And if we look at MACD is still above the zero line. This is a monthly chart. So let's look to and as Alex would say, we can't trade the monthly chart. So let's turn to the weekly chart. Now on the weekly chart, as we saw last week, we had the 4 EMA just riding along the 9 just slightly above it, and it remains slightly above it. And we have the 9 above the 30 for the 30 weighted moving average. So as far as the moving averages are concerned, we still have an uptrend, although it seems precarious at this time. And on the other side of on the bullish side of things, we have this bullish harami that we saw last week. And now we have price closing pretty close to the high of this bar. So that's all bullish. On the negative side, on the short side, we have, or the bearish side, we have the parabolic above the most recent bar. So when you take this whole complex of candlestick or bars here and the moving averages, we see the similar kind of conflict between the bulls and the bears. It's a tug of war right now. Now there are those like Alex who is anticipating that that we're going to get, and we'll see that on the daily chart. So let's turn to the daily chart and see what Alex is proposing. Here we go. On the daily chart, what we have is last Friday's bar breaking out above the 9, the 4, the 9, and the 30 weighted moving average. So it closed above all 3 moving averages. And if you recall from a week or two ago, I mentioned that 27.27 might be a key level to keep in mind. We are now at 27.47 because that is where 27.27 was where this 9 EMA was situated, I believe. See right about there, 27.27. And now we're above it. We're 27.47. So that's bullish. We also have parabolic below the most recent bar on the daily chart. So it seems as though the daily chart is pulling out of this downtrend here. It's been doing that. And what Alex is proposing is, and he's anticipating, is that this turns out to be a false breakout. In other words, it goes higher perhaps, but it doesn't overcome this resistance here at about 28.50. I'm just giving what I've learned from Alex recently. If that's the case, MACD should come down. Okay, it will go higher. MACD will trend higher, but then it should come back down, anticipating this to be a false breakout. If this trend is going to continue, then MACD will not go as low as this. The histogram will be much shorter on this side, on the right side of the screen. Then we will have a bullish divergence of MACD. This is the classic kind of thing we're looking for, one way to look at this market at this time. On the other hand, let's take a look at some of the other indicators. We have RSI 12 now comfortably above the 4%, the 40% line. It's bumping up against 60%. We have percent R above 50%, and I like to use the 50% line as a line in the sand. As long as price remains, as long as the percent R remains above 50%, as it did all the way along here, I feel comfortable with holding much of what I got in terms of stocks. And once it crosses back, I feel comfortable buying them back if I sold any here, which I did. So this is a picture. I hope I'm not confusing you too much, but that's what I'm anticipating. That's what I'm seeing at this time. So let's take a look at some individual stocks. Now, just quickly before we get into the individual stocks, this is the S&P again, S&P 500, and you can see that on Best Choice, it became very overbought, came all the way down, became very oversold, and is now trending back up. It's now sitting at an extreme level of 14.9. So we have a lot of room to the upside. And if we would like to set some targets, what is the first target at the 50% line? It would be 27.97. This middle line here would be 27.97 on the S&P. This middle line. And if we wanted to know what the 90% line would be, we take a look here. It would be 28.58. So we could see that 28.58 line. Okay. So those are some targets. Many people who trade options off of Best Choice, using Best Choice, will buy calls. If it were an individual stock, they would buy calls at a price somewhere between the 50 and the 90% line, right about in this area here. All right, let's turn to some individual stocks. We usually start with one of our favorites, which is Apple. And what we see on Apple is that we had this pullback, okay, and then we had a morning star, bearish candle, doji, bullish candle. So we have this bullish morning star, and last week we had a nice move again. We are now hitting the parabolic. Parabolic should move below the next week's bar if it continues to trend up like this. You can see that the 4 is now above the 9. If I open it up, you'll see that. The 4 is above the 9 above 30. So the trend is now up in terms of the moving averages. If we look down at RSI 12, we can see that it crossed back above the 40% line right here, and it's now trending up. And of course, when RSI 12 moves above 40, we have the beginning of an uptrend. Now, we can also see this being confirmed on percent R. Percent R crossed the 50% line right in this area. And at the bottom of the chart, you see MACD trending up from below the zero line. And if any of you have read Alex Seller's books, you know that he points out that this is one of the best times to be going long, to be buying a stock, if it's a stock or an index or whatever, an ETF. When the MACD begins to trend up from below the zero line. Well, this is what we have here. So I like Apple. I still have it. And we can take a look at the best choice chart on Apple. Here's the best choice chart on Apple. We can see that it did this retracement here, became very oversold. This would be a hammer, as we saw in the other chart. And we are now in this uptrend. We are now sitting at 57.9 extreme of 57.9. So in the middle of this regression channel, we still have room at the upside. If we want to know what the target is at the 90% line, the upper line, it would be 183.01. Okay, and the middle line is 174. Well, we are at the middle line right now, the 50% line. So the next major target would be approximately 183, which is a nice little move from here anyway. All right, let's take a look at something else. We'll go back to TC. Here's Facebook, a weekly chart. What we have developing here seems to be a morning star, bullish morning star, very bearish candle, doji, bullish engulfing candle here. Parabolic is still above the most recent bar. So we still have some questions about this trend of Facebook continuing to go up. However, it's looking encouraging. Let's take a look at the daily chart. I want to move along here. On the daily chart, you can see that the 4 just crossed above 9, okay, the 9 EMA, and it seems as though the 9 EMA is poised to break above the 30 weighted moving average. So it seems as though this trend is once more resuming its uptrend. So let's take a look at something else. Here's Visa. Visa is seemingly resuming the uptrend again. You can see how these bars are trending higher. RSI 12 is above 60, so there's no indication to reverse this. And I'm going to move along more quickly now. So this is looking like if Visa is resuming the uptrend again. It did pull back a bit, as we know. Let's look at something else. Here's a daily chart of Berkshire. It obviously pulled back here, became oversold, and seems to be working its way back up. Presently, it's finding some resistance at the 30 weighted moving average. But the 4 seems to be crossing over the 9 at this point here. So we'll see how that develops. But I consider Berkshire a long-term holding. So in fact, it's still relatively oversold. So if one doesn't own it, this may be a good time to accumulate some Berkshire. Warren Buffett will be interviewed on Monday on CNBC for a couple of hours actually, if you're interested. Let's take a look at something else. And here's what Microsoft looks like on the daily chart, on the weekly chart, sorry. 9 above 30, 4 above 9, 9 above 30. So in terms of the trend lines, moving averages rather, the trend is up. We do have this bullish engulfing candle here, and last week we closed up again. So Berkshire is looking, not Berkshire, Microsoft is looking pretty strong at this time. On a daily chart, you can see it even more significantly so. See the 4 above 9, 9 above 30, trending up, right? And MACD is now looking more bullish than ever, than it's been for a while. And so I would be certainly looking at Microsoft at this time here. Here's a quick look at NVIDIA, which I bought some time ago. It's still looking strong. This is a weekly chart, and that trend line is the moving averages are looking pretty positive, and all the other indicators are looking good. And on the daily chart, you can see that it's in a good position here. Let's take a look at something else. And lastly, here's a chart on Align Technology. I told you I bought some calls on this, and somewhere in this area here, a couple of weeks ago, and it's doing very well. It's the value of the calls are up about 80% since I bought them. So that's nice. Well, I'm going to call it a day here. We allotted 15 minutes on these free videos, and we'll try and do this again next week, God willing. We're going to go to the expo tomorrow, some of us, and if you're there, give us a call. Have a good night.